Chapter 61 Domineering and Domineering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though I figured my plan was a long shot, I still had to see if the Navy was playing me. The instant Chen Fan bolted, Kizaru lit up like a Christmas tree and took off after him. As they neared the island surface, both their expressions flipped. Chen Fan was stoked, but Kizaru looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. They'd both spotted a celestial dragon huddled in a corner of a house, decked out in a signature bubble helmet and white suit. Holy Rose Ward, strolling along with his two guards, had stumbled into the middle of Kizaru and Chen Fan's brawl. His guards were instantly vaporized by the shock waves. He was left speechless, trapped in the house. Without a second thought, Chen Fan knew his luck was in. He charged towards the celestial dragon. Kizaru, who'd been keeping his distance, couldn't catch up now. He'd wanted to box Chen Fan in, so he hadn't closed the gap. Now, at the crucial moment, he was too far behind, but when Chen Fan was just a few feet from St. Rose Ward, a bone-chilling sense of danger slammed into him from behind. Reacting instantly, Chen Fan whirled around, his fist glowing black with fourth-gear hockey, packing enough punch to level a mountain. Zephyr, fresh on the scene, was the attacker. Spotting Chen Fan about to grab the celestial dragon, he'd gone all out. The sheer force of it sent shivers down Chen Fan's spine. Instinct screamed at him, "Don't block it." This wasn't the old, armless Zephyr he knew from the future. This was a full-fledged Admiral-level powerhouse. Zephyr's haymaker was something else. Face grim, every nerve on high alert, Chen Fan tried to shift into his elemental form, but at this range, it was too slow. Am I gonna die? No way. I haven't become king yet, haven't reached the top. I can't go down like this. Facing death. A surge of power within Chen Fan broke free. A wave of energy, like a psychic blast, rippled outwards, knocking out anyone within a few hundred yards. At the same time, Zephyr's fist faltered for a split second. That fraction of a second was all Chen Fan needed. He turned into lightning, vanishing in a flash. He'd awakened Conqueror's hockey just in the nick of time. Boom. The black fist slammed into the ground, the earth shook, rocks flew, dust filled the air, and a crater dozens of feet deep appeared. That's how powerful Zephyr's punch was. If Chen Fan had taken that head-on, he'd be lucky to be alive. Meanwhile, Chen Fan, having dodged the blow and awakened his Conqueror's hockey, was now standing next to St. Rose Ward. 100 yards away, he grabbed the celestial dragon by the neck, his eyes cold. He didn't squeeze too hard, just enough to trap Rose Ward and stop him from escaping. Killing this guy would mean losing his leverage. Zephyr and Kizaru, witnessing this, looked both furious and surprised. Zephyr, especially, was shocked that this kid had awakened Conqueror's hockey, even caught off guard. He'd been stunned for a moment. What really surprised him was the kid's hockey. It was newly awakened, but incredibly potent. Otherwise, there's no way he'd be able to shock me even if I was unprepared. Let me go, you filthy slave, you bug. I am a descendant of the Creator. Release me, and I'll spare your life. Let you be my slave. St. Rose Ward clawed at Chen Fan's hand, but with his strength, it was useless. Piece of garbage. Chen Fan's gaze was icy. That one look filled St. Rose Ward with terror. You're a general and a vice admiral, right? Help me. I'm a celestial dragon. St. Rose Ward frantically pleaded with Zephyr and Kizaru. Chen Fan, release the celestial dragon, Zephyr commanded, his aura pressing down, but it had no effect on Chen Fan. General Zephyr, are you kidding me? This is my ticket out of here. How can I let him go? Talk about luck, stumbling across this trash. Chen Fan grinned at them. Let me go, you insignificant ant. I am a noble god. St. Rose Ward kept babbling. Chen Fan, annoyed, tightened his grip on his neck. Rose Ward went silent, his face turning purple, struggling wildly. Zephyr and Kizaru, their expressions darkening, shouted, "Stop. Wait, how do we know you'll release the celestial dragon?" Zephyr clenched his fists, his eyes filled with reluctance. He knew the ball was now in Chen Fan's court. Zephyr and Kizaru probably wanted to kill this celestial dragon more than anything. They'd almost pulled it off, but now Chen Fan had turned the tables. Simple. You let me go. Call Akiji and let my crew, and Hawkeye my hawk, go, and I'll release this celestial dragon, otherwise, start planning his funeral. Chen Fan grinned and eased his grip a little. Gasp, St. Roseward sucked in air. The near suffocation had almost killed him. Zephyr and Kizara hesitated, not wanting to lose their chance. Oh, what's with the thinking? You need to hurry up, or I might just slip up. Chen Fan smirked, glancing between Zephyr, Kizaru, and St. Roseward. Looks like those two don't want you around, so I'll just send you on your way. Chapter 62 Leave and take control of the battle situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You two Marines are pathetic. I'm a celestial dragon. If anything happens to me, you're all dead men. St. Roswader had learned his lesson and didn't dare yell at Chen Fan, but he still took it out on the Navy. Zifa and Porcelino exchanged a frustrated look. Protecting the celestial dragons was part of their duty as Marines, leaving them with no choice. Porcelino, call Marshal Kong and explain the situation, Zifa said, barely containing his anger. Resigned, Porcelino pulled out his mini den mushy and started dialing. Hurry it up, my patience is wearing thin, Chen Fan said, a smile playing on his face. Zifa wanted nothing more than to kill Chen Fan, but with the celestial dragon in his grip, he had to hold back. Meanwhile, at the marshal's office, Cyborg Kong was waiting anxiously. When the den mushy rang, he thought it was good news and immediately answered. Marshal, we have a situation. A celestial dragon showed up, and Chen Fan's got him hostage. He's threatening to take the celestial dragon down with him if we don't let him and Hawkeye Myhawk go. What? They captured a celestial dragon? Cyborg Kong was stunned. Yes, Marshal Kong. What are our orders? Porcelino asked, his usual carefree tone replaced by one of seriousness. Cyborg Kong was silent, clenching his fists. He didn't want to let Chen Fan slip through their fingers, but if the celestial dragon died, he'd never be able to explain himself to the five elders. After a moment of agonizing hesitation, Cyborg Kong finally made a decision. Back at the scene. What's the hold-up? Have you decided yet? Or is this guy gonna bite the dust? Chen Fan pressed them, glaring at St. Roswader. The look in his eyes terrified St. Roswader, who screamed, "What are you Navy guys waiting for? The world government is supposed to protect us celestial dragons. What are you useless sacks of garbage hesitating about? Just give him what he wants and save me." The insult stung, and both Zifa and Cyborg Kong, listening in on the den mushy, were visibly angered. Ugh. Kong sighed, realizing he had no other choice. If the celestial dragon died because the Navy didn't act, he'd be facing consequences he couldn't even imagine. Release Hawkeye Myhawk and Chen Fan. Save the celestial dragon, Cyborg Kong ordered, his face a mask of frustration and his fists clenched. Roger that, Porcelino replied, swallowing his objections. Did you hear that? Marshal Kong has given the order. As long as the celestial dragon is safe, we'll let you and Hawkeye Myhawk go, Zifa said, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. Interesting. I threaten a bunch of island civilians, and you're ready to act without a second thought. But now that it's a celestial dragon, you cave. Justice, huh? That's what the world government's all about. Chen Fan scoffed. Alright, pirate, you've had your say. It's not your place to criticize the world government, Zifa retorted, feeling a pang of shame. Porcelino felt the same. Porcelino, tell Kazan to let Hawkeye Myhawk go, Zifa ordered. Knowing he had no choice, Porcelino dialed his tiny den mushy again. Meanwhile, the battle between Kazan and Hawkeye Myhawk was drawing to a close. Hawkeye Myhawk was covered in cuts and bruises, blood oozing from his wounds. Huff, huff. He panted, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped Black Blade Yoru, but his eyes remained sharp. Kazan, though also wounded with several deep cuts, was in much better condition. He had the upper hand. If the fight continued, Hawkeye Myhawk would soon be defeated. They faced off in mid-air, each knowing what was coming, but Hawkeye Myhawk would never surrender. He gripped Black Blade Yoru, his sword intent rising like a storm, ready to fight again. Kazan was the same. Cold ice enveloped his body, creating an intense pressure. Gulu, Gulu. Kazan's den den mushi rang. After a moment's hesitation, he answered. It was a black den den mushi, which meant it was an emergency. I'm in the middle of capturing Hawkeye my hawk. What's up? Kazan said into the den den mushi, his eyes fixed on my hawk. Let Hawkeye my hawk go. Chen Fan has taken a celestial dragon hostage and is demanding we let them both go. Marshal's orders. Porcelino's voice crackled from the other end. Kazan paused, surprised. Hawkeye my hawk saw his opportunity. He raised Black Blade Yora to attack, but then his own den den mushi rang, thinking that only a few people knew his number. My hawk stopped and answered the call. I've captured a celestial dragon and threatened the Navy to let us go. You're free to leave. Kazan won't dare to chase you. If he does, call me. Understood, Hawkeye my hawk replied, glancing at Kazan. He saw that after answering his call, Kazan had no intention of attacking. He turned and walked away. He would never admit defeat, but he wasn't interested in dying. Kazan watched him go, reluctantly. He couldn't disobey Marshal Kong's orders. A few minutes later, Zifa, barely containing his anger, glared at Chen Fan. Happy now? Hawkeye my hawk is gone. Can you let the celestial dragon go? Yeah, let me go. Saint Roswaiter shouted, squirming in Chen Fan's grasp. Shut your yap. One more word, and I'll snap your neck, Chen Fan snarled, his eyes burning into Saint Roswaiter's. Chapter 63 Bounty of 14 Million. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing that devilish look, Saint Roswaiter clammed up. He wasn't stupid, just arrogant. He valued his hide. Sure, I'll let him go, but you two gotta scram. Get lost. Otherwise, if I release this celestial dragon and you guys get caught again, I'm toast. Chen Fan said with a smirk. No way. If we both leave, we can't guarantee the celestial dragon's safety. If you off him, we're powerless to stop you, Zifa shot back. Fine, Porcelino, get out of here. General Zifa, you stay, and I'll hand over the celestial dragon to you. Otherwise, we all go down together. Chen Fan's face hardened. He was done wasting time, knowing the Navy could be closing in, cutting off his escape. Okay, Porcelino, you're dismissed. Zifa ground out. He was itching to punch the celestial dragon into next week. He was a marine general, completely led around by this punk because of the celestial dragon's presence. It was humiliating. Porcelino, hearing Zifa's order, had no choice but to vamoose. With a flash of golden light, he vanished into thin air. After 5 or 6 minutes, when Porcelino was completely out of sight, Chen Fan relaxed slightly. Happy now? Zifa glared at Chen Fan, barely holding back. Couldn't be better. Chen Fan grinned, then turned his attention to the celestial dragon. Roswaiter, seeing that nasty look, panicked. What are you doing? You said you'd let me go. And I will. Chen Fan said, then tossed the celestial dragon toward the sea. Whoosh, starred at a bolt of lightning flashed as Chen Fan shot skyward. Zifa was caught completely off guard. He'd expected Chen Fan to release the celestial dragon and then bolt, giving him a chance to give chase. He stared at the celestial dragon plummeting toward the ocean, then at the disappearing figure streaking toward the horizon. After a split second of hesitation, Zifa chose to save the celestial dragon. Boom! Zifa exploded with power, vanishing in an instant. He'd maxed out his speed, making him terrifyingly fast for a brief period. Just as the celestial dragon was about to hit the water, Zifa appeared, snatching him by the clothes and hauling him to shore. You trash! What took you so long? I'm a celestial dragon. What if I got hurt? You'd all be in deep trouble. Roswaiter whined. Even after being rescued, Zifa, a marine admiral, barely contained his fury. Pretending he didn't hear, he dumped Roswaiter on the island, made a call to get him picked up, and then walked away. He was done listening to that jerk. Meanwhile, Chen Fan was booking it. He was surrounded by lightning, moving at incredible speed. He glanced at the bundle behind him, grateful that Porcellino didn't want those items destroyed during the fight. Otherwise, he'd be stuck lugging that load while fighting. After about 20 minutes, positive he wasn't being followed, Chen Fan finally slowed down. He'd called Hawkeye Mihawk earlier, telling him to meet on a small, charted island. Now, Chen Fan had arrived at the small island, smack dab in the middle of the ocean, only a few thousand meters square. Half the island was covered in dense forest. Without a second thought, Chen Fan descended. Hawkeye Mihawk, sitting on a rock nursing his wounds, noticed the approaching thunder. He started to rise, but sensing the raw power, decided to stay put. "How are you holding up?" Chen Fan asked, seeing Mihawk's injuries. "He really needs a doctor," he thought. "I'm fine. Nothing serious." Mihawk replied coolly. He was beat up, but nothing life-threatening. Hearing that, Chen Fan flashed with lightning and disappeared into the forest. A few minutes later, he returned with an elephant carcass. Then, Chen Fan started a fire and began to barbecue. The smell of roasting meat filled the air. "Alright, let's chow down." Chen Fan called to Mihawk. Mihawk didn't protest. He was hungry after the fight. They sat down and began to eat. Chen Fan, ravenous, tore into the meat. As he ate, a faint heat radiated from his body, like dew after rain, slowly healing his wounds and barely boosting his physical strength. It was just a tiny bit, but over time, it would add up. Half an hour later, Mihawk was full after only eating 5 or 6 pounds. Chen Fan ate most of the whole elephant himself. He didn't care. Plenty of powerful pirates had huge appetites. On the other side, at Marine headquarters, in the Fleet Admiral's office, Cyborg Kong was livid. He couldn't believe such a golden opportunity to take down Thunder God Chen Fan and Hawkeye Mihawk had been squandered. Kong wanted to scream. Zifa and Porcellino, sitting across from him, also looked miserable. Even Porcellino, usually nonchalant, looked regretful. He was mainly responsible for this operation. Now he'd have to put in more effort next time. What a drag. Porcellino thought, sighing inwardly. He just wanted to punch the clock. Why was it so hard? This Chen Fan, his potential is terrifying. If he keeps growing like this, he'll become another huge threat to the Navy. And this guy will do anything to survive, even threatening civilians. We can't let him get any stronger. From now on, Chen Fan is a top priority target. Zifa, you're leading the team to capture Chen Fan, and his bounty is being raised to 1.4 billion. After some heavy thought, Cyborg Kong finally decided to assign a full-fledged admiral to hunt down Chen Fan. He didn't want to see how Chen Fan would turn out in the future. Chapter 64. 1.5 years later. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yeah. Zifa knows Chen Fan is a slippery character, so he's determined to stop him now. Porcellino was secretly relieved by Cyborg Sora's decision. Finally, he was off the hook for dealing with that mess. 2 days later, the sun beat down, a sea breeze blew, and the Thor sliced through the New World waves. 2 figures raced towards the ship from the horizon. Monet, who was training, sensed the approaching thunder and knew Chen Fan was back. "Brother, are you hurt?" Monet rushed to meet him, giving him a hug. "I'm fine," Chen Fan replied, gently disentangling himself to unpack. He laid out the 7 devil fruits and said to Lafitte, "Pick one. There are 2 paramecia types and 5 zoan types. I recommend this Dordor fruit." Chen Fan knew what the fruits were thanks to a devil fruit encyclopedia he'd picked up along the way. He'd been shocked to find a Dordor fruit among the paramecia types. He figured he was lucky. Someone from CP9 probably hadn't eaten it yet in this timeline, and he'd just stumbled upon it. Chen Fan had originally considered giving the Dordor fruit to Hawkeye Mihawk. It would boost his strength even more. Was he worried about being surpassed? Not at all. He was still young and improving rapidly, thanks to the thunder fruit and his physical fitness slowly increasing. Besides, if you're training over 13 hours a day and still can't measure up, you might as well give up. However, when Hawkeye Mihawk heard about the fruit's abilities, he paused, then declined. It wasn't right for him, he said. Chen Fan realized he was right. Mihawk became the world's greatest swordsman without ever eating a devil fruit. Either he didn't want one, or he had impossibly high standards. Lafitte eyed the dragon fruit-like devil fruit Chen Fan offered and took it. Chen Fan explained the fruit's powers and how to develop them. A Dorador fruit. Not bad. Lafitte looked at the fruit, listening intently. Intrigued, he ate the fruit. The first bite was like swallowing sewage, and he almost gagged. Ha 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 ha. Monet collapsed in laughter. Having eaten a devil fruit herself, she knew how awful they tasted. Lafitte finally recovered. He began testing the fruit's powers. He reached out and touched the air. A door appeared for a few seconds before vanishing. He'd just eaten it, so that was all he could do for now. Lafitte looked at the spot where the door had appeared and considered Chen Fan's explanation. He wondered how powerful this fruit could become. What about me, big brother? Monet saw Lafitte's devil fruit and wondered if she'd get a gift. Chen Fan pulled a gravity bracelet from his bag. This is for you. Chen Fan handed it to Monet. What's this? Monet examined the round bracelet curiously. It's a gravity bracelet. See the button in the middle? Push it, and you'll feel gravity. The buttons on either side adjust the intensity. You can't use it yet, though. The lightest setting is 10 tons, and it goes up to 15. Chen Fan realized he'd forgotten to bring a lighter one for Monet. Okay. Even though she couldn't use it yet, Monet was thrilled. A gift was a gift. Chen Fan looked out at the endless sea and the Thor, satisfied with the talent and strength of his crew. Lafitte was an exceptional navigator with impressive fighting skills. He'd initially recruited Monet for her snow fruit, but she trained hard every day. In a few years, she'd be a real asset. As for Mihawk, he'd become the world's greatest swordsman. His potential was unquestionable, and he was already at the level of an elite vice admiral. He was his biggest asset right now. Captain, where to next? Lafitte asked, watching Chen Fan gaze at the sea. Chen Fan pondered. The Navy had sent Porcelino and Admiral Zifa after him. If he hadn't awakened his conqueror's hockey at the last second and run into that celestial dragon idiot, he would have been in real trouble. If he escaped this time, the Navy would come after him harder, maybe even send an admiral, causing a big stir in the new world. With his current strength, elite vice admiral level, was too risky. He needed to lay low, build up his power. If the Navy didn't hear from him for a while, they'd ease up. First, we find an uninhabited island to train and get stronger, Chen Fan told them. They agreed. They were still too green, still too well known. Continuing like this would be too dangerous. Got it, Captain. Lafitte steered the Thor back around. Meanwhile, Zifa continued to hunt for Chen Fan in the New World, refusing all other assignments, but Chen Fan and his Thunder God pirate seemed to have vanished, leaving no trace. 2 months later, the New World was in chaos. Cyborg Kong had no choice but to recall Zifa and focus on other big-name pirates. A year and a half later. Chapter 65 Thor Mode Second Form. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On a nameless island in the West Sea, an intense thunderstorm raged. A concentrated bolt of blue lightning struck a young man standing at the island's center. His dark hair and sharp features stood out against the storm. The young man opened his eyes, revealing pupils that crackled with destructive energy. A wave of Conqueror's hockey surged outwards. Every creature on the island instantly felt an unprecedented pressure, a primal fear gripping their hearts. Most of the forest animals collapsed unconscious. The stronger ones trembled on their knees. Destructive lightning flashed incessantly, transforming the island into a world consumed by thunder. Amidst the chaos, Chen Fan slowly rose to his feet. Some of the lightning swirling around him was even tinged with purple. In a heartbeat, the endless lightning converged on Chen Fan with incredible speed. Boom! Thunder roared as Chen Fan became enveloped in a coat of lightning. Surrounded by destructive flashes, he floated into the air, feeling absolute control over the power coursing through him. Suspended in mid-air, a massive, dark cloud thundered above him. Below, the island had become a sea of lightning. Chen Fan glowed with destructive energy, his blue eyes blazing and hair whipping wildly. He stood like a god of thunder. After a year and a half of training, Chen Fan had not only pushed his observation and armament hockey to their third stage peaks, but he had also deepened his understanding of Conqueror's hockey. Most importantly, he had developed his Thor mode to the second stage. On the shore, Monet and Lafitte, aboard the Thor, stared in awe as Chen Fan stood amidst the lightning. Only Mihawk, with his Hawkeye, remained relatively composed. "This is insane, big brother. It's like he's completely mastered the power of destructive lightning," Monet exclaimed. Lafitte grinned. "The captain gets stronger every day. I can't wait to stir things up at sea with him." He remembered when Chen Fan first recruited him to the Thor pirates, promising to change the world and rebuild it in chaos. Though Mihawk showed little emotion, he was keenly aware of Chen Fan's strength and terrifying talent. Over the past year and a half, they had sparred dozens of times, and each time, Mihawk had been narrowly defeated. The raw power of Chen Fan's Thor mode made Mihawk feel a sense of urgency. He didn't want to fall further behind. Back at the island center, after testing the second stage of Thor mode, Chen Fan descended from the sky. As the thunder dissipated, and the godlike figure appeared, the island's lightning slowly subsided, and the king's aura faded. The conscious animals felt the crushing pressure lift. They scrambled towards the island's edge, fleeing without hesitation. Back on solid ground, Chen Fan stood, radiating immense haki. He could sense the flow of every animal's energy across the entire island. Despite being just a small island, it stretched for tens of thousands of meters. How could Chen Fan, only at the third stage of his haki, cover such a vast distance? During the last year and a half, he'd focused on developing his Thunderfruit powers. Besides advancing Thor mode, he'd also developed his Heart Net, a specialized form of observation haki. He'd also experimented with using lightning to refine his body. After trial and error, he could channel small amounts of lightning to stimulate his cells and boost his physical activity. This thunder body training, combined with his healing abilities, had drastically improved his physical condition. He was able to train with a 10-ton gravity bracelet. Now, he needed a 20-ton bracelet to get the same workout. A year and a half ago, Chen Fan was physically weaker than Sakazuki due to his age. Now, he was on par, or even stronger. He was only 18, and his physical strength was still increasing. With thunder body training and healing, how strong could Chen Fan become in a few years? He might even be able to match Kaido's physical abilities. Dismissing his Heart Net, Chen Fan clenched his fists, feeling his power. Year and a half ago, he was at the level of an elite vice admiral. With his haki peaking at stage 3, combined with his physical improvements and the second stage of Thor mode, Chen Fan was now approaching the combat power of a full admiral. As the thunder completely subsided, Monet, Lafitte, and Mihawk arrived from the ship. "You're so strong, big brother." Monet ran and hugged Chen Fan. He couldn't help but feel that the girl was becoming increasingly clingy. "Captain, where to next? Should we continue training here?" Lafitte asked. Mihawk turned, eager to find another swordsman, but he was stuck. Continued training would only result in small breakthroughs. Chen Fan wanted to push his haki to the fourth stage, but more training wouldn't do it. He needed intense battles to break through his limits and further increase his strength. Chen Fan stared at the blue sea. He was approaching admiral-level strength, and Lafitte was at the level of a vice-admiral. Mihawk was slightly weaker, stuck between vice-admiral and admiral. Even Monet had mastered all 6 naval styles and life return. Chapter 66 The O#039, Hara Incident. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's clear they've all improved in the last year and a half. Chen Fan mused that the Thor pirates hadn't been heard from in these waters for just as long. Some might even think they'd gone to the bottom. Turning to his crew, Chen Fan announced, "Time to head out and make for the new world. This is a chaotic era, and one of the Emperor's seats is ours for the taking." "All right. Awesome. Finally, we can stretch our legs," Monet exclaimed, her face lit up with excitement. Lafitte and Hawkeye Mihawk also seemed eager to set sail. Lafitte was looking forward to causing some chaos on the seas again. Hawkeye Mihawk anticipated finding a worthy swordsman to duel. Then, with the sea breeze at their backs and the blue water ahead, the Thor sailed toward the new world. The next day, the sun beat down. Chen Fan, in the middle of thunder and lightning training on the deck, suddenly stopped and looked ahead. His heart network had picked up a huge disturbance up ahead. He saw a dozen warships directly in front of them, bombarding an island. They were trying to obliterate the whole island, wipe it off the map. The scene, combined with the timing, made Chen Fan think of the Navy's Buster call on O'Hara. Boom, boom, the cannon fire was deafening, and Hawkeye Mihawk also noticed the commotion, both turning toward it. "Captain, a dozen warships ahead. Should we turn back?" Lafitte asked Chen Fan, who was standing nearby. "Not a chance. It's time this sea remembered the name of the Thor pirates. Stay silent for too long, and people forget." Chen Fan grinned, watching the destruction of O'Hara. He recalled that the two leading admirals were Sakaski and Kazan. That was part of the reason Chen Fan was heading there, to test Sakaski's current strength. See if he had a chance of taking him out. Also, he was curious about what was written in the poneglyphs. And for that, he needed an expert. "Understood, Captain." Lafitte steered the pirate ship towards O'Hara as fast as possible. As they neared the island, the warship spotted the pirate ship. On the lead warship, some soldiers didn't recognize the ship. "What's that pirate ship doing? Looking for a death wish? Can't they see a dozen warships here? How dare they get close?" "Yeah, these pirates aren't just vicious, they're brainless too. Good riddance. We can blow up a pirate ship after we're done here." The soldiers joked, thinking the pirate ship was foolishly sailing into a trap, but some of the veterans recognized the thunder flag flying high on the mast, and their eyes widened in alarm. "No. That's the Thor pirates. Thor, Chen Fan and Hawkeye Mihawk are on board." One soldier shouted. The shout caught the attention of the soldiers who had been joking, and they remembered the name, Thor pirates. Most of the Navy soldiers' faces fell, their smiles vanished. They knew Chen Fan's reputation. He had killed a vice admiral, destroyed a Navy base, and shattered the myth of Impel Down being inescapable. "Major General, what do we do?" Lieutenant General Sakaski and Lieutenant General Kazan are both on the island right now. A Navy soldier asked the Major General anxiously. "Wait. I'll notify Lieutenant General Sakaski to come back. Don't act rashly. We can't handle Thunder God Chen Fan." The burly, short-haired Major General pulled out his Den Mushy. He dialed Sakaski's number first. Meanwhile, on O'Hara. Grumble. Sakaski, who had just finished torching the library with his magma powers, heard his Den Mushy ringing. Without hesitation, he picked it up. "Lieutenant General Sakaski, the Thor pirates are approaching our fleet, less than a few kilometers away. Thor, Chen Fan and Hawkeye Mihawk are on board. Requesting support." The Major General's anxious voice blared from the other end. "What?" Sakaski heard that the Thor pirates, Chen Fan, who'd vanished for over a year, had suddenly reappeared. Stunned for a moment, Sakaski's expression turned fierce, clenching his fist. "Chen Fan, you were hiding, but I couldn't find you, and now you show up to die on your own. Then I'll be happy to send you on your way," he ordered the Major General. "Major General Michael, do whatever you can to hold off Thunder God Chen Fan. Don't let him escape. I'll be there in a few minutes, and I'll contact Lieutenant General Kazan." Sakaski hung up, transforming into magma and blasting off the island. He didn't care what it cost Michael and the others to hold Chen Fan. In his mind, catching a notorious pirate was worth any sacrifice. Michael, on the warship, looked grim after hearing Sakaski's order. He knew that even with a dozen warships, they were no match for Thunder God Chen Fan. If Chen Fan and Hawkeye Mihawk attacked, they wouldn't last long. The only way to stall Chen Fan was to throw bodies at him, but he had to obey Sakaski's orders. After all, Sakaski was the commander. Seeing the Thor pirates getting closer, Michael decided to contact Vice Admiral Kazan first. Otherwise, even Lieutenant General Sakaski would be fighting a 2-on-1 battle. Michael dialed Kazan's Den Mushy. Two figures stood on the beach of O'Hara, one covered in ice, the other a giant. They stared at each other without a word. Then, Golu Golu. Kazan's Den Mushy rang. The call annoyed Kazan, who was usually indifferent, but he answered it anyway. Chapter 67 Nico Robin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lieutenant General Kazan, we have the Thor pirates right in front of us. Chen Fan, the Thunder God, and Hawkeye Mihawk are on board. Lieutenant General Sakaski is already on his way back and needs backup. Michael's voice was strained on the other end of the line. Kazan was taken aback. The Thor pirates showing up here. He'd been hoping to use this situation as an excuse to let his friend Saron and the little girl, who were desperately trying to escape, go. Torn, Kazan knew he couldn't, not with his duty to the Navy. My priority here is capturing Saron, the traitorous vice admiral. Tell Sakaski I'm wrapping things up here and will head over to assist. Kazan hung up. Saron, who'd overheard the conversation, managed a bitter smile, saying nothing. He knew everyone had their own reasons. Kazan has his principles as a Marine. Even if they're friends, he'll never let him get away. Back on the warship, Michael looked grim. The Thor pirates were closing in fast. He racked his brain, trying to figure out how to stall them. Meanwhile, on the Thor, Chen Fan scanned the dozens of warships ahead, his brow furrowed. His mind network told him that neither Sakaski nor Kazan were on any of these ships. They must be on the island. After a moment's thought, Chen Fan decided to head straight for the coast. Change course. Head right, towards the coast of O'Hara. Chen Fan told Lafitte. Aye, Captain. Lafitte was a little confused as to why they were suddenly changing direction, heading for O'Hara. Still, he didn't question it. He knew Chen Fan hated having his decisions challenged. The Thor swung around, the propeller churning the sea, and sped towards the coast of O'Hara Island. On the warships, the Navy soldiers and officers, lined up in formation, exchanged confused glances as they saw the Thor suddenly change course. Michael, however, felt a wave of relief. At least Chen Fan was heading towards the island. He and the others wouldn't have to fight so hard. Elsewhere, Sakaski was racing away from the island at top speed. Ring, ring. His den mushy rang again. He snatched it up immediately. Lieutenant General Sakaski, the Thor suddenly changed course and is heading for the coast of O'Hara. Michael reported from the warship. Sakaski was puzzled. Why O'Hara? Could those scholars on the island be involved somehow? He shrugged the thought off after a few seconds and hung up. He didn't care what Chen Fan was up to on O'Hara. He was going to nail him this time. Boom! Boulders flew, the ground cracked, and flames devoured everything. O'Hara was still under heavy artillery fire. In less than 10 minutes, the entire island would be obliterated, sunk beneath the waves. On the coast of O'Hara, Kazan and Saron had begun their fight. It was completely one-sided, but Kazan, remembering their friendship, held back, avoiding any truly lethal blows. He was still trying to talk Saron down. Saron, just come back with me now. I can vouch for you with Fleet Admiral Kong. Ha ha ha, no thanks, Kazan. When you finally understand the world government's darkness like I do, you'll see things my way. Saron laughed. There was no way he was returning to the Navy. His mind was made up. Meanwhile, 8-year-old Nico Robin was running for her life, desperately trying to reach the ocean. A small wooden boat, prepared for her by Saron, bobbed on the waves. Kazan, covered in ice, watched the unyielding Saron and the escaping Nico Robin. His fists clenched, his expression changing. He decided to stop holding back. As the extreme cold radiating from Kazan intensified, the temperature around them plummeted. Seeing Kazan's condition, Saron knew he was about to go all out. It probably meant his death, but he had no regrets. He just hoped Nico Robin could escape, carrying the last flame of O'Hara with her. One last time, Saron. Surrender and come back with me. Bring the girl back yourself. I'll vouch for you. Kazan stared directly at Saron, wanting to give his friend one last chance. No need, Kazan. That child is O'Hara's last hope. I hope you'll spare her life. Saron smiled at Kazan, seemingly unafraid of his own life or death. Kazan stopped trying to reason with him. Instantly, an ice spear formed in his right hand. The next second, his body turned into elemental ice, and Kazan vanished, attacking Saron in a flash. Saron, covered in wounds, knew he was outmatched. But he had to fight, giving Nico Robin a chance to escape. He coated his massive fist in Stage 2 armament hockey, and the pitch-black fist shot forward. Boom! The ice spear and the massive fist collided. The force sent Saron staggering backward. Kazan pressed his attack, another ice spear forming in his left hand. Both spears flew at Saron, incredibly fast and carrying immense power, with no time to dodge, Saron could only raise his arms, coated in armament hockey, to defend himself. Bang, bang. The power was terrifying. Ice exploded everywhere, Saron was forced to retreat, ice clinging to his arms. He was at a complete disadvantage from the moment the fight started, there was nothing he could do. Kazan's strength was almost at the admiral level, while Saron was just a regular lieutenant general. The gap between them was too great, plus, Saron was already injured. He had no strength left to fight back. Before Saron could regain his balance, Kazan attacked again. His fist encased in ice, he slammed it hard into Saron's body, there was no escape. Bang! The chilling force sent Saron staggering back several steps, finally steadying himself. Poof! Saron spat out a mouthful of blood. That last blow had seriously injured him. Chapter 68 Sakaski vs Chen Fan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As Salon wiped blood from his mouth, Kazan attacked. Ice Age. Kazan unleashed his freezing powers, and terrifying ice began to slowly encase Salon's body. Panic filled Salon's face as he tried to resist, but he was no match for the ice's power. The frigid ice spread rapidly, freezing him from the ground up. Nearby, Nico Robin, who was running toward the coast, witnessed the scene. No, Salon. Young Nico Robin watched as the ice crept up Salon's body. Helplessness and despair washed over her, and she screamed. She froze, wanting to help, but knew she was powerless. She didn't want to see Salon die. Run! You're O'Hara's hope, run! And remember, your mother loves you. Salon yelled desperately as the ice consumed him, turning his massive form into a frozen statue. Tears streamed down Nico Robin's face as she watched, her expression etched with pain and sorrow. Seeing Kazan's relentless pursuit, Nico Robin knew she carried O'Hara's future. She turned and ran towards the coast, but how could she outrun Kazan? Suddenly, a pirate ship bearing the Thunder flag appeared on the shore. Kazan stopped short. Get the girl on board, Chen Fan ordered Monet. He needed someone who could decipher the poneglyphs. Okay, big brother. Monet transformed into snow, vanishing instantly as she headed for Nico Robin. Kazan, seeing this, rushed to intercept her, his body emanating freezing energy, but a thunderous kick slammed into him, sending him flying. Chen Fan, crackling with blue lightning, stood before Kazan, his gaze piercing. You're not getting past me, Kazan. Chen Fan's tone was calm, yet firm. Thunder God, Chen Fan. Kazan's expression was cold, and his clenched fists betrayed his anger. A wave of icy energy exploded, the temperature plummeted, and frost began to coat the coast, threatening to transform it into an Arctic wasteland. Interesting, Chen Fan sneered, unleashing a torrent of destructive lightning. Zzzzzzzt, the sound of thunder reverberated, and terrifying electrical power surged. Within seconds, half the coast was a frozen wasteland, while the other half churned with a raging electrical storm. Locked in a fierce battle, Kazan and Chen Fan locked eyes, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Meanwhile, Monet reached Nico Robin, who was still reeling from the devastation she had witnessed. Tears still welled in her eyes. Her mother was dead, her home destroyed, and the person who had protected her had just been killed. Nico Robin was consumed by despair and grief. Don't worry, we're here to rescue you. Monet didn't know why her captain wanted to save this girl. But he must have his reasons. And the poor thing did look miserable. Nico Robin looked at Monet with suspicion, not believing her words. Look, I know you don't trust us, but we're really here to help. If we wanted you dead, you'd be gone already. Monet's hands turned to ice. Touching the ground, a circle of ice spread out for a meter. Nico Robin realized that this girl was powerful. Even if she had ulterior motives, Nico Robin was in no position to resist. I know it's a lot to take in. But trust me, we're good people. Monet tried to reassure the still distraught Nico Robin. Nico Robin still had doubts. Why would strangers come to her aid? But she knew she didn't have many options. Back on the coast, the destructive thunder and extreme ice continued their clash. Thunder God Chen Fan, step aside. Kazan glared at Chen Fan. You tried that a year and a half ago. Didn't work then, won't work now. Let's see how much you've improved. Chen Fan grinned, blue lightning crackling around him, more terrifying than ever. The lightning bolts, once like small snakes, now seemed to transform into giant pythons. Kazan didn't respond, but he could no longer hold back. He was ready to attack. Just as they were about to clash, a massive force barreled toward Chen Fan, a giant magma dog of terrifying power. It was reminiscent of Impel Down, but Chen Fan was far stronger now. Sensing the attack, Chen Fan didn't flinch. He channeled his lightning into his fist and struck. Boom! The thunderous fist collided with the magma dog in a cataclysmic blast, sending debris flying, magma splattering, and lightning arcing. Chen Fan's attack pulverized the magma dog. Thunder God Chen Fan, you were good at hiding. Now you come out looking for death. Sakaski appeared beside Kazan, his body engulfed in lava, his gaze fixed on Chen Fan. You rabid dog. Today I'll put you down for good. Chen Fan's eyes narrowed, and his lightning intensified. Whoosh! In a flash of lightning, Chen Fan's fist, charged with thunder, hurtled toward Sakaski. Sakaski showed no fear. His body was encased in magma, his fists hardened with armament hockey as he met Chen Fan head-on. Boom! Thunder met magma in a devastating collision. Sparks of electricity and streams of lava erupted in all directions. 69 Fierce Fight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After 2 years, they slammed into each other, each staggering back 7 steps. Sakaski, feeling the force behind Chen Fan's attack, was surprised. He hadn't expected Chen Fan to withstand his blow after all this time. What's up, dog? Seems like you haven't improved a bit in 2 years. Chen Fan smirked. You're asking for it. Sakaski, never having been called a dog before, was enraged. Magma engulfed his body as he charged again. Chen Fan wasn't fazed. He channeled terrifying lightning, meeting Sakaski head-on. Bang, bang, instantly, 2 figures, one red and one blue, clashed and soared from the ground into the sky. They brawled, trading brutal blows. Raging thunder and scorching magma destroyed everything around them, and neither could gain an advantage. Below, Kazan wasn't considering joining the fight. Instead, he glanced at Nico. Robin. Hesitation clouded his face as he weighed whether to let her escape. He was torn between a dying friend's request and his duty to the Navy. As he wrestled with his decision, Hawkeye Mihawk, brandishing his black sword, appeared before him. Let's go. Hawkeye Mihawk drew black blade Yi. Since his captain was facing Sakaski, he would handle Kazan. Hawkeye Mihawk was eager for a rematch after losing to Kazan a year and a half ago. Kazan, sensing the formidable sword intent radiating from Hawkeye Mihawk, couldn't afford to underestimate him. A layer of ice enveloped his body, 2 frozen spears materialized in his hands, and he vanished from sight. Wielding the spears, Kazan attacked Hawkeye Mihawk. Hawkeye Mihawk calmly coated his supreme blade in the 3rd stage of armament hockey. Boom! He disappeared as well. Instantly, black blade Yi collided with the ice spears, shattering them with its razor-sharp edge. Kazan's expression flickered. He realized that his opponent's strength had drastically improved since their last encounter. Still, Kazan remained composed. Puck! Kazan extended his hands, releasing 5 icicles from each palm, launching them at Hawkeye Mihawk with incredible speed, attempting to freeze him solid. Hawkeye Mihawk, with his keen observation hockey, sensed the attack immediately. Gripping black blade Yi tightly, he unleashed a torrent of green sword energy, shattering the massive icicles. Fragments of ice showered the ground, turning it into a frozen wasteland. Then, Hawkeye Mihawk reappeared, his body radiating intense sword intent. Charging towards Kazan. Seeing this, Kazan's body erupted with ice, forming an ice blade in his right hand, and he met the attack head-on. They collided again, sending shards of ice and bursts of sword energy flying. Everything around them was devastated, the ground either frozen solid or cracked. The 2 figures were locked in a fierce exchange, their strengths evenly matched, neither able to gain a decisive advantage quickly. On the coast, Nico. Robin was stunned, watching the 4 combatants. She saw anger in Kazan's eyes, the man who had killed Vice Admiral Saul, and she was curious, who were these guys? How could they possibly be on par with admirals? Saul had told Nico Robin about the Navy's 3 rising stars, one with the ice fruit, another with the mag fruit, and the last with the glint fruit. Although not yet admirals, their power rivaled that of ordinary vice-admirals. They were practically admiral-in-waiting material. Nico Robin had witnessed Kazan's terrifying abilities firsthand. She never expected these 2 newcomers could stand their ground against them. Suddenly, Nico Robin felt a flicker of hope for escape. She vowed to escape, carrying the hopes of all of O'Hara. She couldn't let down the people who died in O'Hara, her mother, or Saul. With that thought, Nico Robin turned to Monet. She knew her only chance to escape the Navy's clutches was through this pirate crew. "What's the name of your pirate crew?" Nico Robin asked Monet. Monet was surprised to hear Nico Robin speak. This girl was tougher than she looked. "We're the Thor pirates. The one wielding thunder is our captain, Thor Chen Fan, the other one is our co-captain, Hawkeye Myhawk." Monet briefly introduced them. Thor, Chen Fan. The name sounded familiar to Nico Robin. Then her eyes widened in realization. Saul had mentioned that name. Thor Chen Fan was the monster who broke the myth of Impel Down, killing a Navy vice admiral before the age of 20. Nico Robin decided then and there that Chen Fan was her ticket to freedom. Meanwhile, in the sky, thunder still roared, and magma rained down. Chen Fan and Sakaski continued their furious battle, each attacking with everything they had, aiming to kill. The longer the fight went on, the more bewildered Sakaski became. He couldn't understand how Chen Fan had improved so dramatically. Just 2 years ago, even injured, he could still beat him. Now, after just 2 years, this guy was his equal in terms of strength, combat skills, and mastery of his devil fruit powers. He was even at a slight disadvantage. Sakaski couldn't believe it. He knew his own talent, was considered a monster since childhood, and he'd spent the last 2 years training relentlessly while completing missions. He'd risen from the rank of elite vice admiral to near admiral level. How could this guy catch up? "What's the matter, dog? You seem weaker than before. Are you getting rusty?" Chen Fan taunted as he attacked. "You want to die?" Hearing such ridicule, Sakaski's rage threatened to erupt like a volcano. Chapter 70 The End of the Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Magma Hound. Sakaski's fist turned a deep black, pulsating with fiery magma. He unleashed a lightning-fast punch toward Chen Fan, the magma morphing into a colossal hound spewing scorching heat. "Even a mangy mutt like you thinks he can take me? Thunder Dragon." Chen Fan showed no fear. Channeling destructive lightning into his fist, he retaliated in kind. The raw power coalesced into a massive blue dragon crackling with electricity. Boom! The impact was deafening. The magma hound and the thunder dragon collided in a cataclysmic explosion, twisting the very air. Shockwaves rippled outwards, shaking the ground. The fighters broke apart for a moment, then renewed their attacks. Chen Fan's thunder-charged right foot, black as ink, slammed down like a titanic axe aimed at Sakaski's head. Sakaski, his face contorted with rage, braced himself, arms hardening to a dark obsidian laced with molten magma. He threw up his arms to meet the blow. Boom! The force of the collision sent Sakaski staggering backward, like a boulder dislodged from a cliff face. Before Sakaski could recover, Chen Fan vanished. "Is that all you got, mutt?" A split second later, Chen Fan's voice echoed behind Sakaski. His right hand morphed into a claw crackling with thunderous energy, aimed squarely at the back of Sakaski's skull. Reacting with the honed instincts of a master of hockey, Sakaski whirled around, his magma-infused hand shooting out to intercept the strike. Tear. Blood splattered as 5 crimson gashes opened on Sakaski's arm, exposing the bone beneath in a gruesome display. "You son of a bitch. You'll pay for that." Sakaski, consumed by fury, unleashed the full force of his magma, attacking Chen Fan with unrestrained ferocity. "Bring it on. Is that the best you got?" A smirk played on Chen Fan's lips as destructive thunder erupted around him. The blue lightning writhed like gigantic serpents of pure energy. The two collided once more, transforming the coastline sky into a tempest of thunder and a sea of fire. 2 figures, one blue, one red, collided with blinding speed. Only afterimages marked their passage in the chaos offshore. The Navy troops watched the earth-shattering battle with mingled awe and dread. The only thought that filled their minds was how these two men could only be monsters. Despite their shock, the sailors were there to perform their duties. Boom! Cannon fire rained down upon the island, turning it into rubble. The only ship not bombarding the island was the Thor. O'Hara was merely a modest island, and this constant barrage would undoubtedly reduce it into dust. On the coast, at the moment, Kazan and Hawkeye Mihawk were fully immersed in their own conflict. Hawkeye Mihawk had portions of his body completely frozen by ice. He swiftly removed the ice, yet he couldn't immediately alleviate the frostbite within him. Kazan, on the other hand, faced an equally difficult situation, with deep sword wounds covering his body. At this point in the battle, the two had essentially reached a stalemate, with neither having a clear advantage. Boom! Another collision, another explosion of frozen sword intent, and both fighters were forced to retreat. Kazan, covered in ice, regarded Hawkeye Mihawk across the battlefield, a flicker of concern in his eyes. He had underestimated Mihawk's development in the past year and a half. Hawkeye Mihawk was eager to engage with the strongest swordsman, but he couldn't afford to underestimate the current opponent. To avenge his previous defeat, Hawkeye Mihawk was prepared to give his all in this confrontation. Boom! Hawkeye Mihawk shot forward once more, fueled by determination. With both hands gripping his supreme blade, Black Blade Knight, he lunged towards Kazan with ferocious speed. In response to this deadly attack, Kazan had no hesitation. He coated his body in the frigid ice and went forth. Clang! The sound of collision reverberated, as the two exchanged blows with relentless intensity. Both warriors tapped into their full potential, unleashing armament hockey, observation hockey, and swordsmanship. Both aimed to swiftly defeat each other to provide much-needed help to the battlefield. Midair, the air crackled with thunder and scorched with magma. Who? Sakaski gasped, his breath ragged. The intense battle was taking its toll, draining his strength. Chen Fan, too, was feeling the strain. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead as his energy reserves dwindled, yet, Chen Fan had endured fewer injuries thus far, granting him a marginal edge. Still nothing but a damn dog, huh? No progress in the last year and a half. You're pathetic. I might as well put you down for good. Chen Fan hovered in the air, wreathed in lightning, taunting his foe. I beat you 2 years ago, and I'll beat you now, fool. The constant jeers of Dead Dog finally snapped Sakaski's control, igniting the fire within him. Land of magma. What? With a roar, Sakaski channeled his magma into his hands and plunged them straight into the ground. Instantly, hundreds of meters of ground morphed into a molten sea of magma. Chen Fan quickly responded to this move, teleporting himself right in front of Sakaski, but Sakaski raised his head and shot the magma towards Chen Fan. Boom! The intense force of the burning magma drove Chen Fan back a dozen meters. Chen Fan was taken aback by the sudden increase in Sakaski's power. The blazing magma persistently accumulated on Sakaski's body as he was forced back. In a heartbeat, the strength within Sakaski was steadily increasing, and it appeared that he was arriving to his peak. Chen Fan jumped straight into action after seeing this. You think you're the only one with tricks up his sleeve, Mutt? Thor mode. Second stage.